Oh, hi. How are you? Good to see you. I thought that was you. I was running to the bathroom. So. Yeah, there were people downstairs. Waiting downstairs at the big, whatever, I went down with Elizabeth and Diana, and there's like 5 or 6 people, and I was like, come on.
Okay.
So I was trying to do the whole.
Okay, I was looking for you.
There you are. I was reading out the window up here. I walked out of the bathroom and I was like, oh, well, we couldn't get it because they have something going on, I think, at like 11. So we couldn't get it. That's why we did the live feed, because we figured, yeah, and you know, it's raining too. People get like, it's easier, it makes it more accessible. Yeah, exactly. That was the plan anyway. How are you? Great. How are you? Good. Carrie's getting the sign-in sheet for us, so she rocks. Speaking of,
Thanks for having a sign sheet as our logos.
You're part of the coalition, of course. That's all good stuff. I have pens. Oh, could grab one, I suppose. Okay. Hey, babe. Isaac is going down, he was supposed to put a sign down there, and he's like, I don't want to get something.
Yeah, they're having like a Christmas party in there.
That's exactly it. That's why we had to come up here.
And I was saying, I was like, hey, and she's like, oh, there's a party. And it's like, we're not in there.
But okay, thanks. We could go in there and just bust into the house.
Right.
For the Christmas party, that should be fine.
Presents.
Wow, I'm totally doing it. We're doing that. Hi there. I discovered trying to do something else with your school. Right there, that's it. You're welcome. Well, the grading thing kind of.
Yeah, I know, that everyone's always.
Yeah, no, I probably get it.
Good sign in sheets, so it's nice, and then.
Very weird after that one. Yeah, I sent that out. I got the GK on it yesterday. Oh, it's going on.
All the money spent on it.
Every time Brian does something, she's like, she sees pictures of him, like, I'll take pictures of where it's on the vision, she's like, where's his money? He better be holding that. You talk to him about that then, because I got nothing sister.
Well, I use it.
Absolutely.
Money well spent. Good, how are you? Sometimes if we're really lucky, there's coffee in the cafe downstairs, but not today. It's a vending machine. Downstairs in the cafe.
Really? And it sells coffee?
It smells like vending machine tap soda. Actually, there might be those cold drinks.
Hannah, I almost opened that cookie down there and ate it.
You should have.
We were at the wrong meeting, they were giving out
Oh.
cookies and that.
And the Christmas.
I don't know, but we were like, I kept looking around, this does not look right, and they gave us cookies, and I kept staring at that cookie.
Like a little cookie on the table or something.
No, it was a wrapped cookie, and it was from mom.
Yeah, it was like a milk and.
I'm a mom, I need nourishment, I thought the cookie was a match for me.
But as soon as somebody brought up the kazoo, I was like, oh no. This is really the right place.
Yeah. How are things you can share, how are things going with that?
Oh, yeah, I can share. Part of it. We have
Because
they're not really accomplishing anything and we missing it. And so have it continue in the last year. And you know, moms, like, she's sometimes, you know, very sad a few times and she was so good at how to communicate together about how much they love each other and that anything that's done in writing, anything that's bad, needs to be given to her prior to the meeting, so she has time to read it, process it. So they handed her this 4-page, a sheet of reflection they had in hand, wanted her to read it again, and then vote on whether and then we just had some.
We're waiting, there's some people that are on their way and everybody's just kind of, Isaac was just putting up signs, so he was really trying to get the whole, live feed going. I guess it's on, so.
It's on.
Ew, dear God. Great, now I'm blinded in one eye. Okay, for those of you who are on the feed, we'll be with you uno momento. Okay, I don't know how that's gonna work. I really don't,
Can you
'cause
put that over,
he said that's a camera.
can you tilt it? So that
Yes,
it's
you
like
can.
sit it right
That would be
here,
great. I'll just be like this.
or sit it right
I'll
here
just
on
put my
the
head like
table.
that every once in a while. People are like, what is she doing? There should be used to that by now, it's me. Exactly. We're gonna do a through interpretive dance. We decided today. All the problems. And the issues. So, anybody who's on the live feed, we're waiting just a couple minutes. We have a couple people coming up and there was some movement with some things. This is on, right? Isaac, am I talking to you? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you talking to yourself?
Well, that would be the first time. So that's fine. There's a sign-in sheet in the back. If anybody hasn't signed in, sorry. I should go to that. Are we good, Isaac?
Yeah.
I mean, with the live feed? Okay. Well, this is our first time we're doing a live feed, so it's kind of exciting. Because we recorded the coalition, or the coalition and the ASIABA conference. We recorded everything, but it wasn't live. We're live.
Big time.
I know, it's exciting.
Is there a 7-second delay?
Is there a 7-second delay? So if I say a bad word, which is not uncommon to me,
There's a delay, but I can't do anything about it.
come on!
I can't do anything about it.
Could you just imagine? It would be like, hi, Abe. It'd be like everything, every other word would be like bleep, 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 bleep. Oh, there's a sign-in sheet in the back, ladies. Hi. And we're, morning. Oh my God, she's like, Carol's all her. I love you. How are you? There's a sign-in sheet in the back, everybody. Oh, thanks. You're so sweet. Not that I don't appreciate being blinded, because it's super fun. I still can't see out of the one eye, but what else? I literally stuck my head and it was like, oh, because there's a live feed going in my stuff. We don't have workers' comp insurance, so I don't know what's going to happen. The coalition, yeah. Oh, that's it. I'll have but Dee will have like some sort of the logo on the page. Right? Am I right? I wonder, is Dee on the feed? She may not be. She's having a rough night with Andy, but if she is, she'll get a laugh out of that one. She will. Yes, we blinded you, but it's a great opportunity for us to do some sort of networking and some sort of advertising for the coalition. That's what she would do. She would do it. Good call.
Let's do yours.
Okay, so I think we'll get started. Maybe. What do you guys think? Are there people on the feed, or am I just talking to no one, Isaac? Or you can't tell?
Yeah, there's people on there. There's 7.
7? Wow. People need to calm down. 7 groups. This is a good idea, though, I think. Don't you guys think? So, like, what if it would have been really icky and then, like, they closed roads in Flagstaff because there's big snow up there, so this would be a good thing. Careful with, poor Carrie is sick and she's here.
Oh.
So, okay, Carrie's not sick. She's plays one on TV. All right, I'm gonna close the door. Isaac, is that cool?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. How's everyone today?
Great. Great.
Why don't we go around really quickly and introduce ourselves and where you're from, and yeah, there you go. Go.
Carolyn Mulhern from Clavier, Director of Operations.
Boom.
And Christmas. And Christmas Academy, sorry.
Repeat, woman, get it right.
I'm sorry.
Hi, Danielle Lacco, Christmas Academy Clavier, Director of HR.
Melissa, with Positive ABD and Operations.
Boom. Nice. Welcome.
Amy Kender, Clinical Services Director of SART.
Okay.
Alice Blue Racing Special Kids, Family Support Specialist.
Hi, Alice.
Lindsay Garvish, Alice Under Disabilities.
Beautiful.
Lee Jackson from Elementary.
Hi, Lee.
Hannah Robichaud from Ellen Behavioral Health Group. Carrie Burgess from England United.
And not sick? What? No idea what you're talking about.
Feeling great.
Elizabeth Ronaldo with Touchstone Behavioral Health.
Linda Crania, Director of Mom.
Mom of the Year Award for Linda Craig.
Thank you, Linda.
Brittany Price and Sherry.
I love that Ben's family's here. Hooray. That's amazing.
Family Director also.
That is correct. CEO of the family.
Ashley Lowe, that's Phoenix Kids.
Hi, Ashley.
Barb Baker Seekers.
Hi, Barb.
Forest Bell Family LLC.
Mr. Trouble, I mean, what, of course.
I'm an extra client.
Perfect. Stupid meetings.
I know.
Yeah. What are you gonna do with that, huh? Oh, fine. No, I'm glad you're here though. Thank you for, pitch hitting. That's awesome. Hey, Isaac, who are you?
Isaac Keel, digital marketing consultant. I run Digital Sunrise, digital marketing company. And I do consulting for Coalition.
And about 12 other companies that they have. It's perfect. He's really just our employee. No, he's not. I'm kidding. Okay, so, people on the phone. Who's on the phone? Isaac, can you say, or you don't know, it's just people
No,
on the phone? All right, whoever's on the phone, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Am I talking too loud? I
It's
can't.
not phone.
Or video. There's me. Who's that? They're in the room with me? I don't know who they are. Okay. I don't like that. All right, so this is the thing right here, Isaac?
Yes.
Okay. So 2015, there are changes upon us. You know what? I'm going to knock down a couple of lights, maybe a little bit. What do you think? Isaac, yeah? Okay. Just because it's a little bright, and seeing as I already burnt out my retina, it's probably a good idea that yeah, is that better? Can you see this a little bit better? Yeah, okay, if I'm in your way, you guys let me know. If people, I don't know if people in the room can see it, but hopefully you can. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. We've compiled a bunch of information. I am very blessed to work with a lot of amazing organizations, and well, come in, Jesus. Brian has to make an entrance. Do you notice? Oh, Dr. Davies here. We can start.
I was actually learning about nutrition.
Downstairs? We were talking about that. Elizabeth wanted us to go there because it's a Christmas party.
Yeah, that's
So
so much more fun, no offense.
seriously, I totally get it. There's presents. Elizabeth was like, there's presents downstairs.
I'm taking the whole group and we're going downstairs.
I'm fine with that. You please do. Actually, I'm going with you. So I hope that works out. Okay, so we just introduced everybody. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Brian.
That's helpful. Thank you. Some homeless man just walked in from the street and is now part of just Brian. He's like Cher or Madonna. Brian.
Brian, I'm the CEO of a group at Preston Island.
Perfect. And on the coalition board a little bit. Okay. So what we did is we put together, like I was saying, I'm very blessed to work with and be a part of several organizations. And so I have really great people that I'm able to learn from and talk to. And so for me, it's been enlightening this past year in particular with some of the things that we're going to be dealing with and we'll talk about today. But our friends at, like Love and Touche are always very helpful to us, and we love them. And Goodman Schwartz, I work with them quite closely, and they are amazing. Barb knows. And just, we've had just some really good networking opportunities the last few years in particular, so we have some really good relationships. And from that, we're extracting all the super fun information. So we're just going to go through it, and I just hope everybody takes what they need from it. Again, we're going to go through some very specific situations that we're dealing with right now, and we just need to really kind of understand this as a group and kind of come together moving forward in 2015, okay? I'm Ann Monahan, sorry. I'm CEO of, I'm Cher. I'm CEO of Insure Billing, Vice President of State and Governmental Affairs for Hope Group. I'm the chair for APED and the board president for the coalition. Okay. So here's my disclaimers. I'm not a legal expert. I might play one on TV, but I'm not. CPA Insurance Advisor, Division of Labor Specialist, or Legislator. Okay. This information is not endorsed by or to be used against the coalition, APED, Hope Group, EBI, Insure Billing, blah, blah. Personally, whatever, my son, Jack, he's 11. This is for informational purposes only. Please utilize the resources mentioned in this presentation to gather more specific information that you may need. And it's gathered by many sources. You'll see a lot of my sources on the bottom of the screens, on the slides, and you'll be able to use those and go to get your own information, but it by no means replaces what your legal team, what your CPA, and told me to do it. So if that happens, you're in real trouble. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right now. And I put your opinions are always welcome. The deadlines were completed last week. I would like to point out that I've seen Dr. Davey, my friend and compatriot, several times, and his disclaimer is like 4 slides long. So, because he belongs to so many organizations, people are like, oh. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands we're compiling this information for everybody, but I am by no means an expert in any of it. I just have a a pretty good understanding, I think, but just kind of keep that in mind. First thing we're going to talk about is minimum wage. Is everybody aware that minimum wage goes up in 2015? 805, super fun. I think one of the reasons that this really does pertain to us is the fact that a lot of people that we know within our field, for respite in particular, pay about $8. Sometimes $8.50, maybe $9 or higher if you're lucky, but the reality is minimally you're going to be required to pay $8.05 at the beginning of the year. Does that make sense to everybody? Is this a surprise to anyone? God, you guys are brilliant. Thank God. Whew. Well, we were like going through this. I'm like, let's make sure they know everything. You know, that's the big stuff coming up. It doesn't apply to volunteers. All work hours that are worked must be paid, and the same rules apply for adults and minors. So just because they're 16 doesn't mean you can pay them like $3. My kids get a raise. Look at Caroline. My kids get a raise. Woo! Yeah, no more gas money for you. Right? I've received all this information, all the little fun things from the Industrial Commission of Arizona. Again, there's the thingy at the bottom. All right, no questions about this? We good? Thank God. Oh God. I don't even want to do this one. All right, so here's the thing. The ACA. This has some really good information for you, okay? It goes in, it talks about what the coverage is, what the costs are, what the care is, okay? These are my resources at the bottom. I've worked with many of them individually and as groups. I had a lovely chat with Mike Cody this morning while I was blow drying my hair from Love and Touche. He just called me kind of out of the blue. Hey, you want to talk to me about a couple of things? So interestingly enough, what I want, or I'm hoping everybody gets out of this and understands out of this is a rule and this is a law. Yes, that's true. In the year 2015, if you have 50 or more FTE, full-time equivalents, and what that means is anybody who works 30 hours or more a week, or you take all your part-time people, put all their hours in a big bundle, and extract from there how many full-time equivalents you would get. If it is 50 or more, you are required to provide them health insurance. Okay? For those of you who are in the 50 to 99 range of employees, you get a reprieve this year. It doesn't go in until 2016. So luckily, for some, that when you look at your full-time equivalents, FTEs, you'll hear that all the time, right? If you have 80 FTEs, you are not required until 2016. But for those of us who have larger organizations or enough that you have the 50 full-time equivalents, this year, in particular, or higher than that this year, you're going to have to be able to, in 2015, cover them. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these. I just put this on here so people can look at it later and have the specifics to it, okay? What I do want to make sure that you understand, come January, big business, this is taken directly from Love and Touche and talking with them too, legally obligated to provide health insurance or pay a tax of $2,000 per employee. For all of them. So the small business coverage, kind of like I talked about, additional coverage are required. If you're hearing the scuttlebutt, there's a lot of discussion right now at a federal level about this being completely off the table. It is not at this point. It has not been taken off the table. It is still a requirement. Regardless of what you hear that, and I'm just saying it this way because this is what everybody's talking about, what the Republican Party, right, has said that they're going to do in an effort to try to not have to do this kind of health care coverage. This is still the law. So be prepared, okay? What I mean by that is if you don't know the specifics, contact the people that you work with, your insurance broker, okay? Obviously they know all about this. If you don't have one, go to Love and Touche, check out a couple different options because there's some really good people out there that would be more than happy to help you. Be very careful about going online because it's icky, and that's a technical term. So what happens is, and this is a prime example, I just went yesterday and helped somebody through the exchange. If you don't know what you're doing and you get on the exchange, you could be in a world of hurt. So for anybody who has employees, that are going to go through the exchange, or family members or friends, my suggestion is this. Plan out your basic coverage needs. Every person is different. If you look on the exchange, right, what ends up happening is it'll say things like, here's your deductible, here's your copay, here's your cost share, here's your coinsurance, here's the plans that you can choose. Okay, health.gov is our exchange. There is an Arizona eHealth, there is a healthcare.org, there's a bunch of different ones, and it can be very confusing, okay? This friend that I just helped went on eHealth, Arizona eHealth, and was told she would be eligible for a certain subsidy. They can't give you that information. You have to go to healthcare.gov to get that, because the problem is she had many people living in her home, but she was only able to claim 2. So that's what she was going to get the subsidy based on, okay? And what happens is if you look online for a thing like eHealth or something else like that, what'll happen is it'll say, what's your gross pay, right? How many people live in your house? This is what we think you're going to get. And the problem was, it wasn't accurate. So she was looking at plans based on what she thought she was going to get for a subsidy versus what the healthcare.gov, when she went through all the steps, allowed her to take. Okay, so what I will say is, in situations like this, make sure you contact your insurance broker or even other professional for your specific company needs, okay? They're going to walk you through it, and you're not going to be alone. But if you do go onto the exchange, I had said this to Mike Cody, actually, we talked about it this morning. We need to have, this is just my opinion, of course, always, like a sheet that says, what kind of doctors do you see? What are your prescriptions, and write them out. Because people are very confused by the fact that there says $5 generics, $20 first tier, $35 second tier, all of those things, right? And they don't realize your prescription that you have doesn't fit at any one of those tiers. You got a 50% copay, which is $200. So, okay, no, that's good. So for situations like that, you have to make sure that you understand what your specific needs are and what your employees' needs are, to make sure that the benefits are fitted to you specifically, especially if you're going to get a subsidy. Does everybody understand the whole subsidy thing? So basically what that does is, based on your income, right, and your household, like I said, people living in your household, who it is that you can claim as a dependent. The government has said, hey, you're a family of 4 and you make $40,000 a year. And because of that, you get $204 a month in subsidies from the federal government that allow you to apply that towards your policy. So where a regular policy may have been $400, your policy is now $200. Okay, that's what that is. But it's very specific to your family and who you're able to claim and all the rest of it. It's not a very easy process, and I'm very concerned for us and our field and our companies and the families we work with, the employees we work with. If they're going on the exchange, you got to kind of walk them through it and make sure that they're actually finding a plan that makes sense, right? There's 0 deductible plans, but a $500 copay for the ER, right? Are you going to be in the ER? Do you have medical issues that make you go, or you have to go into MRIs? It's $1,000. It's great that you have a 0 copay, but you need 3 MRIs or 4 MRIs a year. You better plan $4,000. Okay, so it's those types of things that you have to be very, very clear on when you go onto the exchange. And the reason I bring up the exchange so much is that a lot of discussion has been, if you're not going to go through a group insurance, right? Maybe you're going to say, hey, I'm going to give my employee a stipend towards their insurance. And I'm going to offer them insurance, but I'm going to give them a stipend towards it. I'm not going to offer a group plan. So the exchange is going to be extremely important to us here, okay? There's phone lines you can call. There's people you can talk to. Just make sure that you're educated and your families and your employees are educated as to what the options are for them. Right? You have to look at summary benefits. You have to get down into the nitty gritty of what's covered and how much you're really going to have to pay. And you have to make really good decisions based on that information. Okay, did I confuse everybody? Is it okay? Kind of clear? Okay. All right, I did also want to quote, oh yeah. I need a healthcare plan that covers the depression and anxiety caused by trying to understand my healthcare plan. I thought that was like perfect when I was looking at, various things. I was like, oh geez. This is a nice FAQ. A fan, they're a partner of ours. Autism Speaks, Autism Votes. This is specific to autism benefits in the Affordable Care Act, okay? This is an FAQ taken directly from Autism Votes, and it tells you, when I buy an individual small group policy through the Arizona Health Insurance Marketplace, will applied behavior analysis ABA be covered? Their answer is yes. Insurers that offer new coverage to individual small business are expected to cover ABA. Arizona imposes a dollar cap on the amount each year because the ACA prohibits annual dollar limits on essential health benefits. Insurers may be able to convert these limits to non-dollar limits, such as a cap on the number of sessions of applied behavior analysis each year. If, for those of you who are familiar with Stevens Law, 0 to 9 is 50,000, 10 to 16, thank you, Amy, it's been a while, 10 to 16 is $25,000 a year. Those are the caps that came on with the Stevens Law that came down. And what they're trying to say here is there's a potential for that not to be an issue anymore because it's required, as all states are required to be covered by your ACA plans, regardless of it being state or federal. Okay, so if there was a mandate already in place with your state, the ACA comes in, right? We have the federal exchange because we chose not to do a state exchange, right? Because of that, what they're saying here, cap on sessions, dollar amounts, things like that, you may be able to talk through that process with the insurers to see if that still is the case, okay? Obviously very important for you guys over here, okay? Where can I learn about Arizona's insurance marketplace? Healthcare.gov, our favorite place that we love to go. Did Arizona choose to expand its Medicaid program? Yes, Arizona expanded its incomes of 133% of the federal poverty level for 2015. That works out to be about $16,100 a year for individuals or $32,913 for a family of 4. Medicaid expansion didn't do all that much for us. What Medicaid expansion does, in my opinion, what Medicaid expansion does is it helps other people who run into this range here get benefits, okay? So I just want to make sure that you guys understand, because somebody like, oh, it's Medicaid expansion, we'll have all these autism benefits. It doesn't really have too much of an effect on what we did. This just includes additional people in those coverages, okay? Great resource, love them to death. You go there, you click right on it, it pops right up, and it's just good stuff. Because if we really need to know what's going on in Arizona, they're constantly on top of it. Brian can tell you, we work with them quite a bit, and Judith Yusetti and Lori Unum, and just really great people. And Amy Hummel here, of course, she's part of the coalition, who we love. Sorry. So, anybody have any questions about the Superfund ACA and what autism coverage we have in Arizona at this point? No questions. You guys are good? Everybody's got their plans in place, ready to go? No. At least horses on us. No. You know what? Let's draw some. Well, again, there's a lot of really good resources out there. And my suggestion is, this is going to be made available. So obviously there's a couple people you can talk to and just find some people that you trust, to work through it. Is that good? We good? See, that wasn't so painful. Let's go have cookies. Oh my God. Okay. I might have to sit for this one. All right. This is probably okay, I went through the first ones kind of fast. This and the last piece of our meeting today is going to be the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about, okay? All right. Is everybody familiar with what a companionship exemption is?
No.
No. Love you guys. Honest is good. That's why we're here.
Is that what you say?
Yeah, so who wants to talk about it? Because it's not going to be me. No. Yeah, and just, you know what, piping up back there. So last session that Dr. Davey did that I was in, it was dinner and there were drinks. And so he told everybody who asked a question that they had to take a shot first. I thought that might work today, but I thought, it's 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Everybody else can drink.
Hooray, that's perfect. I think that's great. And And here's the thing, by that time we'll be like, who cares about companionship exemption? I hate the ACA. It'll be like this big ordeal and everybody will be just crying together. It'd be great. It's a bonding thing, really. Okay. Companionship exemption, okay? This gives you all the deets, but I'm just going to talk to you about it, all right? Again, I did this so you would have the specific language if you needed it to show to anybody, okay, because it's important, obviously. The other thing is I got the DOL.gov and the wage and hour division on the bottom. Click on either one of those. It'll give you all super fancy stuff. I have to say, I do really like, they have multiple fact sheets for the wage and hour on the DOL. And they're really good, honestly, because you can click on them and it'll say, it talks about everything, really. So my suggestion would be look at the fact sheets if you get a chance, okay? So Congress passed this in 1938, a couple years ago. We did it in 74. Came through the last couple of years and made a distinct change to the verbiage on what is considered a companion. Okay. Used to be that companion was pretty much anybody who worked in a home, lived in a home, took care of somebody, elderly, disabled, right? And what they wanted to do was make sure that those people were taken care of like everybody else. Because our population is so different, because we do have things where we work 24 hours and, overnights and things like that, for a very long time, we have been what's considered exempt from overtime rules and regulations, okay? What that means is that depending on how you set up your company and if they were considered companions, you could have an exemption that would say if they're setting up their schedule and if they're doing their own piece and everything's great and they work with mom or dad and they're in the home and they work for 2 organizations, they're kind of their own employer, you had an exemption option, okay? In the sense of not having to pay overtime and not having to pay drive time. That is no longer the case, all right? Come 2015, here's the fact sheet right here that I was kind of talking about earlier, just so you know. I really like this one. So the proposed definition of companionship services is limited to those duties that are directly related to the provision of fellowship and protection for a person who, because of advanced age or infirmity, is unable to care for himself or herself. It also allows for the performance of personal care services when those services are performed incidental to the core companionship functions and I underline this, so long as they do not exceed 20% of the employee's time during a work week. Okay, that's what we do. I mean, there's no way you're doing less than 20%, right? Because this is talking about the actual work that we do, okay? Working in homes, rehabilitation, respite, group homes, DT, all of it, right? Well, DT are in the center typically. But again, it's the same concept, okay? These changes require all third-party employees to pay minimum wage and overtime for any work performed. Initially, there was a lot of conversation. Is it 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week? I will tell you it is 40 hours a week, okay? So keep that in mind. Because there are times when we work a 10-hour shift. We have a respite shift. Mom and dad, we work a 24-hour shift. Mom and dad go away, right? I will also tell you that has been addressed with the division because RSD, which is a respite day rate, and a respite day scenario is a mess. Yep. So we, from APAD, we sent a letter to the division with our concerns about the changes within this rule, how it's going to affect not just our employees, but our clients, okay, because that's kind of a big deal, and how it is they're going to work through things like respite day, which technically gets 12 hours taken off of an authorization if it's 13 hours or more per day, but you have to pay for 24 hours, even sleep time, if you're considered to be working. This is where it gets really, really nitty-gritty ugly. Because you go, well, wait a minute, what if I'm sleeping for 5 hours? What if I'm sleeping for 8 hours? What if, right? There, again, you can call the Department of Labor. You have a question? Nope. Okay. I'm sorry, what? She said, okay.
We were talking about sleep time.
Sleep time. That's a huge issue. Well, it's a huge issue, and we've been talking about that quite a bit. And that's there's a few different options to that. Now, you call the Department of Labor in Arizona, that's my suggestion, and they will walk you through what you can and what you do and do not have to pay for, okay? Depending on the hours that are involved, and if they're going to be interrupted at any given time, it's considered work. That's the problem. Because our kids wake up. That's the issue. It's not just.
You're on call.
You are on call. Even if you're sleeping, right? If Billy wakes up and it's 3 a.m. and you've been sleeping for 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever, you've had 4 hours of sleep, that's lovely. But if he wakes up at 3 a.m. and he needs something, you're taking care of him for the next hour. And even if you both go back to bed and sleep for 2 more hours, he's going to wake up again and he's going to need your assistance. So my suggestion is go to the Arizona Department of Labor, talk to them about it. They're going to tell you probably what I just told you, but still, I would check into it. Please check into it specifically for your own understanding. Plus, on here, it will talk about interrupted sleep time. If it's not interrupted sleep time, it's a different kettle of fish. Okay, but with what we do, I don't know very many people who go and are able to sleep an entire 8-hour, 7-hour, 8-hour night. If that happens, then you should be fine. But if it's interrupted, then there's a problem. I know, it's icky.
What about the 11.75?
I was just gonna say that.
Doesn't matter?
Call.
Okay. I mean, because that's the division rule, right? The 11.75.
The division doesn't, and this is where I don't want you guys to get confused. This has nothing to do with the
Right,
division.
I mean, that's what I mean, but they have the 11.75 and then the Department of Labor has the Senate and the interrupted sleep thing, so you're.
Right. I'm hot.
They're not working together.
Is it hot in here? Okay, great. I thought it was me. That sounded stupid. Is it hot in here? Or is it just me? You know what I mean? Sorry. I would really usually wouldn't make you see my arms, but whatever. We're going to deal with it because I'm sweaty. Okay. So, all right. So yes, the division. God bless you. The division has its own standpoint, right? And here's the deal. This has nothing to do with the division. The only thing it has to do with the division is the fact that they're going to have to turn around and say something like, okay, we understand your concerns, and this is what we're going to do about it. But we're going to our Department of Labor, and they're going through the Office of Attorney General for their rules to come kind of filtering down with what they can or cannot do. I will tell you, in my purse, I have their letter because I brought it because I was like, because I got it yesterday. I got the reply to us yesterday. So they are looking at some alternatives and some options, but they are just as concerned as we are. One thing I will also talk to you about with this whole situation here is the drive time. Is everybody familiar with how that works? Okay. So if you look at the rules, it specifically states that drive time is to be paid if it is not in a typical everyday work scenario, meaning like we drive to work every day, right? In the morning you go to work, and then at night you drive home, okay? That's typical. That's what the Department of Labor considers a typical drive time scenario. If you have multiple people you're working with, if you drive to multiple homes per day, you have got to account for that time in between, okay? And what that means is, and I did a whole little example with, I use D, because, I was talking to D, so she popped out. So let me talk about what this means. Employees must be paid overtime, time and a half for any hours worked over 40 per week, okay? One of the questions that we posed was, what do you consider a week? Is it Saturday to Sunday? Is it Monday to Sunday? Is it Friday to Thursday? Okay, so that is something that they're talking about as well. Now, Saturday to Sunday is what they came back with. Correct. That's what they came back with, but just keep that in mind. Anytime an employee is working, they are required to be paid, and I put a little asterisk, including drive time in between clients, okay? The time it takes to drive from one client home to another, if an employee is on the clock, considered on the clock, is included in the calculation towards the 40 hours per week. In other words, if an employee has multiple clients that they see in the same day, more than one appointment, the time that it takes for that employee to drive from one appointment to the other, 20 minutes, half an hour, etc., it's included in their total hours for the week. It's not just paying for your drive time. People get a little confused by that because they think, well, I'm paying for drive time, we should be fine. Yes, but if they work a half an hour worth of drive time every day, 5 days a week, do the math. That's 3 hours. Okay. No, let me go ahead.
Well, 5 days would be 2.5.
Okay. So, thank you.
But what, can you make them a drive time rate? Does
Of
it have to
course.
be a minimum wage? Like, you could do it at 8:05. Oh, is
Correct.
that coming up?
It is, it's fine, no worries. No, and that's a great question. Here's the thing. You can, and it's, I actually put it in here, hold on. You're required to pay for drive time, but you can decide how much to pay for that time as long as it is at least the current minimum wage amount required. So if you have 30 hours, 35 hours a week that somebody's working have and you pay them $12, $13, right? And 5 hours a week of drive time, you can pay that 5 hours a week at $8.05. Okay? You just have to do minimum wage, that's it. All right? Some people though are finding it easier to do a cumulation. No, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Glom it all together. Thank you. And say, okay, on average, they have 5 hours of drive time, they have 22 hours of respite, they have 12 hours of HBM, they have 10 hours of HAB, they have, right, 6 hours of intended care. On average, it's this much. So I'm gonna, on average, pay them this much for the drive time. It's completely up to you how you do it. It just has to be at minimum wage. You can't pay them any less than minimum wage for the time that they're spent driving. Caroline.
Sorry.
No, please, that's what this is for.
I mean, could you say, okay, then at this point, because our agency is so small, we only deal with this, like, we don't deal with a lot of people.
Sure.
Go, like, okay, so you can only work one client per day.
I mean,
As an agency, is that okay to make that rule?
Of course.
Okay.
These are business decisions.
It sounds like a whole.
Okay, okay, right, because I'm like, I know I'm in. Really? So, holy smokes. Okay, good. So anyway. But now I'm like, yeah, you can make any business decisions you want. You can say no one works over 30 hours, period. You can say you can only work one client a day. You choose what you want to do with your business decisions. I will tell you too, there is nothing that we have seen, Barb, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been part of this conversation with me a lot, thank you, that says that you can't share employees. There is nothing in the rules if you were in a situation where it's like, hey, my employees used to work 50 hours a week. You know, we have some friends up north, Rick, for an example. He's got people working 60 hours a week because they're single moms and they're doing whatever, right? Well, he can't afford to pay overtime for 20 hours, right? So what he's done and what some other people have done is they've reached out to one another, worked together and say, listen, they'll work for me for 35 hours and you for 20 or whatever it may be. You don't have to have an agreement with the company. An employee can work with anybody that they want to unless you have something that says they can only work for you, okay? Non-compete and things like that. But when it comes to hours, that's what makes this really challenging because we've been able to allow people to work the hours that they want when they want. And we know it could be 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve. We don't get to turn off our disability, right? It's there 24/7, whether we like it or not. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes, Barbara.
You just want to be mindful of certificates. So you want to have some kind of agreement with that agency. So, you know, would you take Article 9? Would you take Article 9? Let's share the certificate. And so to find an agency that's going to.
If you're comfortable.
Yeah, if you're comfortable, or if you have different training requirements.
Right.
Then you have to talk to that employee to say, yes, indeed, I will take this additional training to meet your standards, because everybody has a basic 4.
Right,
That's to be done
right.
according to the Arizona Administrative Code.
Right.
But what you do above and beyond that.
And your DD contract, yeah,
Right, and to the,
same thing.
so you just want to be mindful of the certifications and the licensing.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
point.
That's a very good point. Linda.
So it says drive time.
Yes, ma'am.
So as an employer, I would know ahead of time that home number one, I'm sorry, home one, and between home 1 and home 2 is.
Pick up your lung and knock it off. Go ahead.
is 10 minutes.
Right.
So it's not like including traffic. So you're not recalculating every time they travel on a different day.
You could.
Say it took 25 minutes one day, or is it just the mileage, like GPSing the mileage from home 1 to
You know what,
home
there's
2?
been a couple discussions about that. The issue is the time, and that's my understanding. Barb, do you understand something differently, or is that okay? Okay, good. So the issue is the time. If it, sorry, almost forgot. If it takes, say it takes a half an hour for you to get there typically. Oh my gosh, car crash, I'm stuck for 45 minutes, right? Instead of a half hour, now it's 45 minutes, and then I go and I work with mom, and maybe I shorten my time working with them by 15 or whatever to keep on the same schedule. Whatever it may be, you have to be able to be flexible. There has been discussions about having either your HR department or even the employees that are working to say, here's where I'm coming from, here's my Google map, it's 18 miles, it's gonna take me 31 minutes, right, on average. And I work with Billy Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I work with Susie Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I work with Charlie Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So the first one and the last one, when I leave my house and when I get home, don't count. But the ones in between do. So if it takes me a half hour there, I have a half hour. If it takes me 15 minutes, I have 45 minutes. If it takes me another 15 minutes, I have travel time of an hour. Okay? Yes.
But if you're always driving at 5 o'clock at night during rush hour, that becomes the average, even if Google Maps says it should take you 10 minutes.
Right.
But if their scheduled time to work is during rush hour,
Right.
it's always gonna take a half hour.
Right.
You have to do that, and drive time is not available.
No, it's not. This is something that we have to pay. Again, this is the difficulty. Transportation is only transportation for certain specific services that the state offers, okay? For what we're talking about, if you're talking about a straight rehabilitation, respite, attending care, that kind of thing, it's not included, okay? Now, they will tell you in the rate rebase that they, dramatic pause, that they looked at these things. Well, I don't think they looked hard enough, but that's just my opinion, and everyone has one.
And they turn the page.
Right, so Barb is right. So those are the things that you have to talk about. It's really the time frame. And where this comes into is it's not just that you have to pay for the drive time, but remember, this goes into their accumulated, that's what it was, time frame that they worked for the week. So if you're scheduled out for 30 hours and you have 10 hours of drive time, you got to be real careful, because anything over that 40 hours, you as the employer have to pay overtime, okay? Now, this is what we were told. I haven't verified this because I keep getting two, so maybe. What we were told is overtime has to be paid at minimum wage or at the rate of pay when they roll over into overtime. So if you're working half and you get 14 hours, you have to pay there. If you're driving and you're over 40 hours, you can pay $8.05. If you're doing respite and you're over 40 hours, it's $9 or whatever you pay. Is that what you understand? Well, what I mean by that is,
That's our understanding as well. because that's-
what my understanding is that at that 40 hours, wherever you are in that, whatever service you're performing at that 40-hour mark is what you have to pay overtime.
You wanna make sure that your documentation is.
Sure, of course.
Department of Labor will-
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, the reality is we do multiple services. So if you're in a situation where you're working HAB, say, habilitation, right? And all of a sudden, you're at 42 hours because of drive time or whatever it is, something pushed you over into that, but you're working HAB at that 41, 42 hours, you pay at that rate. Elizabeth?
So how would that work then if, let's say you're doing rehabilitation and you're at 40.5 hours for the week, but you still had to go do respite for like 2 hours? So
Then you
you're
could-
already at your overtime with the half rate, but
Right.
you have to go and do respite.
So you have to pay for the time, this is what we were told, you have to pay for the time that you worked, right, for that HAB, if it's half an hour at the HAB rate, and then the 2 hours for your respite rate have to be at time and a half, because that's already in your overtime.
For the
rate.
respite.
Correct. The service you're performing and anything after that, once you hit that 40 hours is what you have to pay for in an overtime scenario, time and a half. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that clear? Did I confuse you?
No, that made it clear.
Cynthia, am I confusing you or are you just
No, I'm
disgusted?
understanding a lot of that,
It's like overtime reporting over and above regular time sheets in the middle. And
That is
have to
correct.
indicate, like what service was being performed. And
Right.
Did you go over?
Exactly.
It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. It's a tracking issue.
Yeah, it's a tracking issue. We're starting to use a program called Company Mileage, which has an online app. So our employees that are compensated for drive time enter in their starting location and their ending location, within our system, we've already plugged in all of the addresses.
Oh, good.
And it will automatically calculate Google Maps estimated drive time based on that time of day. So if
Okay.
they're entering it in live time, it's estimating it would
That's
take you
great.
33 minutes to get here,
Yeah.
and then entering it in automatically.
There's
It's
also,
just if they end up like, if there is an accident or something.
Yes.
if there is-
As long as they're entering it at the time that the drive is occurring. So like,
I
like
gotcha.
they hit, departing and then leaving.
so kind of like that whole telephonic when you call in and you say, hi, I'm at the, and that's tracking your time, that kind of scenario. There's been a lot of discussions between, do you have to have a separate timesheet for mileage and a separate timesheet for the drive time? And these are your company decisions. Don't feel like there's a one way to do it.
But there's just some nice technology out there.
There's some
for
huge
tracking
things.
drive time.
Agreed.
So, I mean, don't totally despair. There's some nice things about it.
And then it was total despair.
What are you gonna do when they can track it?
Well, we have safeguards internally to make sure that they are tracking. And then, we sort of can look at, someone that audits them every time sheet period that goes through and looks at least for right now, our employees that are compensated. We don't have very many. When we have to do this,
Right.
it's gonna be
Icky.
So, yeah, I was thinking, like, some people who are gonna be out in the field.
Right.
Let's just say 150 of them said, yeah, the actuates.
And the rest of them are busy.
And what about those that want the data?
They just don't report it.
Yeah, then we're kind of, I mean, I would see we're still on the hook.
We're still on the hook.
Sure.
I think, so that's where we would be like, well, you're not reporting drive time. We're going to enter default time based on what Google Maps says.
Right. Well, and for families
And
too,
same for reporting overtime. If they don't let us know that they've
gone over into overtime, how would you know?
How would we know?
That's exactly
Because
right.
we get time.
Unless you're setting their schedule for them, which is a very rare thing in what we do. We have a lot of obviously people do it, but for families, I want to impress upon you too, and when we talk to other families in particular, this is going to relate to you in the sense that you're able to, at this point, oh gosh, I'm running late because of my doctor's appointment and there's this going on and that going on and whatever. That's going to potentially trip us up now. Because if you're running late and you're a half hour late for your HAB, let's just say, I have a HAB session from 2 to 4, right? You're a half hour late, kind of what Barb was talking about, it feeds right into that. All of a sudden, I was leaving the house at 4. Yeah, traffic kind of stinks, but it's really bad at 5. Now I'm leaving the house at 5. So when you're in situations like that, you have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that that's going to change, potentially, change the work that's being performed and the time frame in doing so. For families, they need to understand, or we hope that they understand, that this is a federal law, federal requirement. This isn't something the state did, has nothing to do with DDD, and we are required to follow it. Since y'all,
As a parent, I would advise putting on a fact sheet for the families to understand what's part of your business, because families don't give a crap about any of this.
Right.
And they're completely not knowledgeable, nor do they want to be. So, just as a mom, if I start having the experience where you're inflexible, and I don't understand why.
right,
I'm gonna be pissed.
very good feedback.
I think we want to start educating our families now,
Yes.
so that they.
Hey, Isaac,
cooperate.
can you write that out? Can you make a note that maybe the coalition come out with a FAQ on this that you guys can then turn around and hand out
And
to
we
your
really like to
families?
share it to all of our families.
And that's perfect.
give it to our share.
Barbarella,
We did a memo to all of our families.
Yes.
We went into all of our provider paychecks.
Yeah.
Twice,
yeah,
just to inform them. And then
Sure.
sat down with the people who always go 40 hours.
Always.
Grateful that they always did.
yeah,
But I can't.
right.
So, yes, it's really good. We haven't done it for drive time yet. We first started it by around 40 hours a week.
Well, and I know some of the challenges that a couple of our other brethren, as I like to call us, ran into was that family shelter hours are being cut. Because it was discussed with them that, okay, if somebody works on average 38 hours or 40 hours in your home, because it's been not a problem for the last 100 years, right? Now they can only work 36 hours because 4 hours are drive time because there's an overtime scenario. And families thought that meant the division was cutting hours. I got a couple phone calls where people are like, they're cutting my hours. No, they're not cutting your hours. It has nothing to do with your hours as a family. And it has nothing to do with that employee not wanting to do the work. It has to do with what we're required to pay now as of 2015.
So they would have to find an additional person.
That is correct. That was one of the concerns we brought up to Access, to CMS, to the DOL federally. And just so you know, there's been a lot of things done on this. There were a couple of stays that were put in there. You will hear things like the Department of Labor will not enforce this for the first 6 months of 2015. Bold. Bold.
But you can be subject to an employee thing.
Absolutely. And you know what? They will not enforce it. What that means is they're not going to come knocking on your door. Hey, what are you doing in there for the first 6 months? But an employee gets upset or somebody has an issue or mom gets pissed or whatever, like you were saying, Cynthia, you got a problem because the DOL's coming and they want to know why you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, right?
And I used to be an HR person that all I did was work with the government when they were overseeing affirmative action, all of those things.
Wow.
And I can just tell you, it's nasty, and it takes you a full employee for 6 months doing all the documentation to defend yourself.
Right.
And all it takes is one employee to make phone calls.
Absolutely. I didn't get paid overtime and I worked 43 hours.
Uh-huh.
And you got a DOL audit on your.
So if they
tail.
say that doesn't mean.
And that's what we wanted to do. I just wanted to press upon you. There was an 18-month stay that was asked for, a lawsuit that went through the federal government that got kicked out. And as a result of that lawsuit, the DOL gave us the 6-month we won't enforce, but that doesn't mean anything. So just kind of keep that in mind, even if you hear that. Hi.
Are there any changes with the rules where employees are not by law entitled to, although we probably do give them in many cases, to a break after a certain amount of hours worked?
No, there's no changes. Those are just considered still the same hours.
Yeah,
There's no changes like, okay, if you have a 15-minute break, your employer has to pay that and it doesn't go. No, because if they're working for you and you're working with the family, say, and it's you and your son and your provider, right? And you're working on something and son has a meltdown, whatever, has to go to the restroom, whatever it may be, that employee is still working there. So those are still the same hours. Even if you as a family member or anybody else says, hey, let's take a 15-minute break.
No, okay, let me just clarify to make sure I understand. So in Arizona, we don't have a law that allows workers to claim a break, say, after 5 hours worked.
Well, they do, but not for what we do. Minors for sure have that. There is a certain rule in the state of Arizona where minors can only work, I think it's four and a half.
Other than minors, regular, there's no rule.
Not that I'm aware of.
Protecting workers many workers obviously give lunch breaks, paid or unpaid.
Correct.
But in general, the law does not protect workers. You can work for as many hours without a break if needed.
Yes, that's my understanding. I'm not a division or a division of the Department of Labor person.
So that's not changing because the federal law, we follow federal law in that area.
Yeah.
And so the federal law has not changed.
Not as far as I know. I know California requires it. They require break times, but Arizona, unless it's a minor situation, I am not aware of that. So that's the best I can do on that. That's a good question though. Thank you, Linda. That's a really good question.
Because where it gets a little sketchy is that if you are saying you are going to give them a lunch break, but then you ask them to do work during that lunch break,
then that's
you have
wrong.
to pay them.
Right.
Not just call it a break that you're not going to pay them and then try to talk to them about a client.
Correct.
Or
Right.
ask them to drive to a client during their lunch break.
Right. That's a good point,
So
Amy.
that's where you have to be very careful that
Right.
if you are going to put a break in their schedule and it's going to be a break you're not paying them, then you cannot ask them to do work.
An unpaid break.
Right. An unpaid break, you cannot ask them to do work there, or it becomes paid and now you have to pay them.
So, and it goes
And
towards
could
your
go over
hours.
40 hours
Exactly.
at that point, because you scheduled a 30-minute break in there.
Right.
And it took them, let's say you give them an hour to get from this client to this client, because it takes half an hour and you want to give them half an hour to eat, because it's the middle of the day.
Right.
But now their drive time, there was an accident, it took them 45 minutes.
Exactly.
You have to pay them for
45 minutes.
And if you schedule them to 40, now they're 40 in 15 minutes.
So if the company's policy is that if you take it away, and correct?
No, I think what she's saying is that you have to pay it if there's something that changes in that. So if I understand correctly. So if you've got an hour.
Oh, yeah, you can't.
Yeah, if you've got an hour and they have a typical half-hour drive time and it ends up being a 45-minute drive time, you have to pay for that 45 minutes. That's just how it goes, and that's what she's saying is how it rolls into. It's just when you're having an unpaid break that she's talking about, where nothing work-related. And again, that does happen quite a bit. I'm glad you brought that up, Amy, thank you, because that does happen quite a bit where people will have an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in between clients.
Right.
At one point, there was a huge discussion, do you remember, about, well, wait a minute, if there's 4 hours in between, that's considered a new time somehow. And you don't have to pay for that drive. Are you with me?
Yes.
There was like a 4 hour, for a while there was a discussion about, well, there's 4 hours in between. 2 hours, right? Yes, and it's a whole new shift, and so you don't have to pay for anything at that point because they've had time to go and shop and do normal everyday stuff, and if they had 2 jobs, so again, talk to the Department of Labor. Ask them specifically, hey, I have somebody who works from 8 a.m. to 9 and doesn't work again until 3 p.m. What's up? Do I have to pay from that 9, you know what I mean? Do I have to pay them drive time then? Or has there enough time elapsed? And even they were a little confused because we got 2 different answers. So that was very helpful. I'm like, let me type that. No, I'm not going to type that because it's very confusing. Did you have a question? I heard you say 3 hours. There you go. That's why you have an HR director. Okay. Department of Labor, Wage and Hour Division. Any questions about the fun times that are had by all when it comes to? Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's not bad. I actually really like.
I do have one more question.
Perfect. Yes.
There was a discussion about there were people who were continuing the fight on this container.
Correct.
Do you have any information about
It
where they're
failed.
at? Okay.
Done.
So
We're done.
They're done fighting.
We're done.
Okay. All right.
Well, let me rephrase. As far as I know, the 3 that I knew of, all of them have been.
Dismissed.
Yeah, they weren't listening anymore, and the Department of Labor's answer to that was the 6-month we won't enforce.
That's it.
That was it. That's the last I heard. And Gail Bowling, who is a very good friend of ours and an amazing person and part of Breast Care and of Creative Networks and APAD and Anchor and all these great things, has been our guy on the ground in Washington, D.C., but he has taken some time off. He's had some health, had some surgery, so he's taken some time off. And he had said, as far as I know, we're done with everything. If anything big comes up, I'll let you know. But that was the last one. Yeah, good question. Any other questions? No? Okay. Sorry. I know, it's horrible, but I was like, okay, either we laugh or we cry. So what are we going to do? We're going to laugh. Do the budget cuts, the light at the end of the tunnel has been turned off. So, super fun. All right, let's prepare ourselves, shall we? Shall we say a little prayer and maybe sing a little song? Because there's what's going on. Okay. All right. This is my question. And I know it sounds silly, but when they were like, oh no, we don't have any money, I'm like, isn't it a Super Bowl year? I kept saying that legislature. I was like, it's a Super Bowl year. We should have $1 bazillion. Don't you know what I mean? That was my question. And so I was like, they're going to listen to what I have to say because I'm doing the slides. So, but I'm like, what is going on? That makes no sense to me. We should have all this extra money and it's, $1 billion and this fund. Yeah, apparently that doesn't happen. Okay. FYE, fiscal year end 2015. Our state's fiscal year, as all of you probably know, go from July 1 to June 30th. Federal fiscal years go from October 1 to September 30th, and everybody's typical year goes from January 1 to December 31st. So we like to keep things consistent in what we do. And so for state fiscal year 2015, okay, we are in the big fat hole by about $500 million. And that's icky, and we hate it. The problem with that is, as you know, hi there, we're already halfway through fiscal year 2015. Fiscal year 2016 starts July 1 for the state. Okay, there's chairs. I'm gonna sit down. Okay, $500 million deficit. So that's a problem. Okay, for those of you who are aware, and who who does AZIP services here? Anybody? Okay, so you all are screaming for the Okay, screaming for the hills with AZIP. You said Raising Special Kids does. AZIP is currently about $4 million in the hole, running into all sorts of fucking trouble. So that makes it very difficult for everybody to continue on serving those services, obviously. So we've worked with AZIP quite a bit, with DES quite a bit, in an effort to kind of clean up some of those. But what you need to be aware of is we're already in the hole for 2015, okay? 2016 looks even worse. Hi, Debbie Downer, nice to meet you. We're 1 billion right now. The projected $1 billion shortfalls for 2016, okay? The JLBC, the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, gets together every year and does projections out for 2 to 3 years. Last year, they did projections out through 2017, okay? And what we saw was increases in expenses, and I'm just giving you a migraine. Well, you're welcome. I'm gonna get like a bill from SART. Thanks for giving Amy a migraine. She's out for 3 days straight. Okay, that was my job here is done. Okay, let's go upstairs and cookies. Okay. So the JLBC came out 15, 16, 17, right? Said expenses are up, revenues are down. Projected revenues are down. So 3 years. Not like, oh, and then there's going to be a Super Bowl, right? So now we've got $500 million for this year, a projected $1 billion for next year, fiscal year. What are our options? Okay, this is what we don't want to talk about, what we're talking about, budget cuts, okay? I've already met with several legislators, continue to meet with several legislators, stalk them, as needed, whatever. And right now, what's on the table is a 5% cut. Let's say that while Amy's out of the room, so she doesn't go into full down melt, right? A 5% cut to our services equals $70 million to the state general fund. Does everybody understand how that whole process works? Okay, so here's how it works. CMS. Remember we talked about interpretive dance earlier? Look at this, we're doing it. Okay, so CMS, big CMS at the top, rolls down to our ACCESS program, Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, which is Arizona's Medicaid program, right? That's how it works. So the funds filter technically through there and then go to DES, which is Department of Economic Security, under which DDD, Department of Developmental Disabilities, as well as EPD, elderly and physically disabled, and all the other MCOs, managed care organizations. That's what DDD is, that's what EPD is, that's what Mercy Care is, that's what APIPA is. They're all managed care organizations. So you've got your big bundle at CMS, right? Federal. Then you've got your state, ACCESS, state, right? Rolls down, funds roll down from there. What people don't seem to understand, and what I want to make very clear here, and so everybody has a good understanding of this, we only receive funds by virtue of the love we get from the legislature. Okay? They are the ones who fund us. We don't have any rules and regs like the Department of Education did when they went and sued. Okay? The rules and regs for the Department of Education state very clearly, you are required to, state of Arizona, fund this, right? We don't have that. Ours says we serve at the pleasure of what the legislature gives us, basically, okay? So I want everybody to be very clear, because sometimes they go, well, DDD, well, ACCESS, well, no. I mean, yeah, it filters through that, but the money comes from the legislature, okay? So if we're talking about the state general fund, CMS, down to ACCESS, ACCESS filters it down, right? Our state general fund is where we get our funding options. Our state has to have the money in the general fund in order to draw down the federal matching funds. My favorite part about that is that right now the state's paying 34 to 35%, and feds are paying 35, 36%, or 75, 76%. What makes me laugh about that is I don't know how that's a match, but it is. So what that means is for every dollar the state puts in 34 cents, the feds put in 76 cents, okay? I know, it's a match. Can't you tell?
The math doesn't.
Whatever, I'm sorry. It was 10 o'clock last night. Well, probably. You get the idea. So that being said, 76.34, that's $1. Oh, well, there you go. 66.30, okay. So that being said, For every dollar, we only have a very small portion that is required by the state, right? But that has to come from the general fund. The money has to be there in order for them to draw down, that's what they call it, draw down the federal funds from CMS through access to DES, DES to DDD. Okay, that's how that flow works. And apparently I've decided that I'm going to be a math major at some point in my life. Okay, sorry. So what that says to us is the state general fund is required, if it's 5% cut that they're talking about, is the state, for the state general fund, right? ICHE is maybe, is $70 million. Thanks, Riley.
Can I just clarify, are you saying 5% off of
Our rates,
what comes here, or 5% completely, everybody's getting 5%?
5% cut across the board. And thanks for asking that. To make it clear with that, it's not just DDD, it's everybody. It's access. It's a 5%. DDD, EPD, all the managed care, the acute care programs, MIMIC, all of that, 5% across the board, okay? That's what they're talking about right now. That's the scuttlebutt, okay? So that's $70 million to the general fund. What that does to us, though, is that we lose $360 million-ish in federal match, okay? And when you talk to the legislature about it, you're like, dude, we missed like $360 million. And they say, but if we don't have the 70 million, we can't draw down the funds anyway. We have to have the $70 million or whatever the amount is in the general fund in order to be able to pull down the federal match in order to fund your services. The 5% cut that they're talking about at this particular time would approximately be $70 million, and that's across the board. Now, that being said, could we try to do a carve out? Could we say, hey, hold us harmless because we've had a bazillion cuts for the last 5 years and we're still freaking out? That's kind of our plan, right? Because we're still freaking out. But can you hold us harmless? If we carve our population out, DDD, it's about $10 million, 9 point something. But then that drops that down to, okay, $60 million. And then that still includes and that still includes all the acute care plans, and it still includes the MCOs, APIPA, MIMIC, all that stuff, right? Behavioral health, this is everything, you guys, all access. This isn't just us. And I say us, I say DDD, okay? So right now, the plan is to continue to discuss what the options would be. We have very good friends at the legislature who we've been working very closely with, and we have what we call our champions, okay? We have a caucus, we have meetings, we have all sorts of fun, super lunch stuff happening. So in an effort to try to say, you know what? Instead of us saying, not only have you cut us over the last 5 years, we want more money, our mantra this year is hold us harmless. Just hold us harmless. Status quo. Please, 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 status quo. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys, it doesn't look good. Because, as they will tell you, or even our friends will have told us, there's no money. 500 million in the hole, you guys, right now. $1 billion next year, which next fiscal year starts in 6 months. So they are really scrambling. I will also say, Governor Ducey's 4 first people that he put on his team are all budget people. So he's very much looking at this. However, good news. Is there any good news? We were asked by Access and some other organizations, they brought some people together and said, give us some good stories, give us some rationale, tell us your top 3 what you're scared of, because they don't want to be cut either. They know that our network is really fragile. They know that. And so we've been able to work a few different angles in the sense of not just the legislature, but we've worked with Access, we've worked with DDD, we've worked with DES, okay? And we've also obviously sent some information to the governor's office. That being said, we just want everybody to be prepared that this could be an issue, okay? So what does this mean for us? A couple different things. If it is 5% cut across the board, it's gonna suck, and we're all gonna freak out. Not in a bad way, but it is what it is, okay? We've tried to, change our funding sources and diversify and do a bunch of things, but the reality is our population is going up and our funding is going down. We know that, DDD knows it, everybody knows it. Even the legislature knows it. The problem is they don't know where else to go. And we have to be very, prisons, we have to be very careful in how we say things and the way we do things, because we are not gonna throw some other organization under the bus. Okay, that's not what we're gonna do. Okay, but at the end of the day, if this does happen and we wanna say, hold us harmless, there's gonna be a little bit of friction. Behavioral health, EPD, any of the MCOs besides DDD, okay? What we have going for us is that they don't want to be cut either. They know we don't want to be cut, right? Or we know we don't want to be cut, they know we don't want to be cut, and they don't want us cut. So they're trying to say to the governor's office, it's bad, right? Without making themselves look bad. And the reason I say that, and I want everybody to understand here, is they are required by law to have a sufficient network, okay, for services. One of the things in the rate rebase, huge jumps in things like nursing and some of those other services because they weren't meeting network sufficiency. That is something they'll say over and over again. Well, we have to maintain network sufficiency, network sufficiency. So that's okay, we'll use those words, okay, because that makes sense. And they have to by law. So that's a good thing for us, okay? Again, we have a lot of champions. I feel really good about our chances. And hopefully, if not 5%, maybe trying to get it at 2 or 1 or not at all. We're pushing with hold harmless, but I want y'all to be prepared that that could be a potential, okay? Not that we want it to be a potential, but the reality is that's kind of, you know, where we are. Aaron.
So I noticed in the new rate book, they have the new benchmark rates.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're like 28% underfunded instead of
yes.
9.
Yes.
So is that a big part of the public message as well?
You know what? Here's the thing. Good question, Aaron.
Sounds like a lot more.
It really does, doesn't it? Here's the, oh God, yeah. So here's what we're trying to do. And this is one of the reasons that we really wanted to have this conversation, is to kind of give you the information here, but also talk about what we're going to do moving forward. So thank you for that. Last year, we didn't use the rate rebase because it wasn't finalized when we talked to the legislature, okay? We could have very generally said something like, oh, well, they're working on the rate rebase and it looks like we're going to be, you know, 25, 23%, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of what we talked about very generally. This year, will we utilize it? Absolutely, we'll utilize it. The big issue for us, I feel, and again, opinion, as always, I feel the big issue for us is that we've had a changeover in governor, we've had a changeover in legislature, there are new people, which is fine. I don't have a problem with, we spend a lot of time educating people, and we still have our champions there, but the governor is known for budgetary intervention. I came up with that word just for that whole situation. So what that says to me is our argument's going to be, and I hate to do this, but this is something we've talked about quite a bit, is do you want another CPS on your hands? Because we're really close to that point. And the reason that we say we're really close to that point is that if you continue to cut, we've already seen people go under. We've already seen many services closed. You've already told us your network's not sufficient. So we don't want to be, oh, our poor, right? But at the same time, you're going to have to deal with this. And in dealing with it, unfortunately, sorry, new legislator, you kind of walked right into it. I'm scheduled to speak to a couple PROPs and Health and Human Services groups. The people that are in leadership, some of them are very good friends of ours and very helpful to us. We're hoping that's going to help us kind of push through, because we really can't survive a cut. But be very cognizant of the fact that every organization is going to the legislature with an ask. Everyone. There's nobody that is not freaking out, whether it be hospitals, the nursing associations, again, access as a whole. Holy smokes, there's a ton of things going on with this, right? Look at all the people that it's going to affect. On top of the fact that we just expanded Medicaid last year. So again, all of those things are very valid arguments. But what my hope is that we come together as, oh, let me go to my next slide, because I think I say this. Okay, good. We come together as a community. And so what I said is, you know, we must come together as a community and fight for what we know is right. Our families, our employees, our companies, and those we have the privilege of serving deserve our best efforts. We'll work with other groups like ours in the community, make our voices heard. We will work with various stakeholders and legislature to educate and impress upon them the disastrous outcomes that would exist should additional cuts in rates and services occurred. We need your help. You guys are gonna have to get involved whether you like it or not. And I hate to, I hate to be in a situation where we're always like, it seems like we're going from crisis to crisis year to year, and every year we go with a handout. We're, asking for a handout, so to speak. But here's the thing. We're expanding, trying to look for other funding options, okay? We're trying to kind of formulate plans moving forward because we're always at the grace, as it were, of the legislature. At the, they can decide what they want to do. And we have kind of, I don't want to say nothing to say about it because we can put people in office or we can take them out. But that's kind of about it. And remember, this is a new legislative cycle. How many of them do you know, including Ducey, ran on, I'm not increasing taxes? So I'm going to start making glitter signs that say legalize marijuana, who's with me? All those taxes come to the development of the disabled, and there you go. Because, honestly, I mean, we joke, but I'm not. Okay, so I seriously want to do it. I'm not kidding. If I could drop a bill, I would totally drop a bill. I might just be a senator soon, just so I could drop that bill.
There is not a bill, you should negotiate with him.
You know what? Ethan is no longer.
Oh, he's not gonna get on.
No, he did make it through the.
Oh, he didn't, okay.
Yeah, I know. I love Ethan. He's my friend, and he didn't make it out of Tucson. But I was like, no, because he had it all ready to drop. And so I was like, oh, I'm totally going to be like picketing out there. If we can just get a little asterisk and a footnote that says this goes to us, all right? Something, even 1%. I mean, so okay, I joke. Well, Vice is nice. That is our mantra. That's we're actually changing the coalition logo, and it's just going to be a big pot leaf, and it's going to say Vice. Welcome to the coalition.
We'll be like the
Right. Well, here's the thing. Right. And so, again, we're looking at other options. Is there potential to jump on another tax of some sort or something where we could try to maneuver a little bit? The difficulty with what we do, you guys, is that it's a Medicaid source. Medicaid rules are very specific, what you can and cannot do, the funds you can get in and not get in. How would this affect us? Does it go in the general fund? Could they take it and use it for something else? There's a whole bunch of discussions happening right now. I just want us to be very clear that, APAD, the coalition, the ASA, a bunch of groups I feel are really going to have to come together this year just to be held harmless. And it makes me sad because I really wanted to go this year and be like, give us money. But now I have to kind of, back off on that a little bit. But I also want to make sure that you guys understand what the potential is, but also that we're going to do a call to arms. We're going to have, you guys need to come to the legislature. Let's sign you up. We'll get you signed up with your legislators to talk to and explain to them, and not just you, your families, because remember, we're greedy providers. We're rolling in it. So for a lot of the legislators, they like to hear from their constituents that say, my child's being served. Do you understand? If we couple all these things, because we have like a list of probably, 6 things maybe, the companionship exemption is going to kill us. Well, we're going to say that because we're dramatic people. The companionship exemption is going to hurt us. The ACA is going to hurt us. We have all these issues that are coming up, the things that are going to hurt us, right? New mandated trainings, other things that we have to do, and you're cutting us. We just went through 5 years of cuts, incremental increases, and you are already, by your own admission, underfunding us, right? So either a legislator has to say, you know what, I know I said no taxes, but we need a 0.5% sales tax increase.
So the shortfall in projected revenues, is there like certain categories where it's just way over projected? Real estate taxes.
Well, like I said, no, I don't know. Like I said, oops, sorry. My thing was like, isn't it a Super Bowl? That's what I kept saying because I was like, what's going on? Because there should have been, based on revenues, especially in travel and all that kind of stuff, they were pretty high, and apparently that's not happening. And then I guess it would be very, very bad also if the Cardinals were in the Super Bowl because people wouldn't be flying in for that. True. So someone take out Larry Fitzgerald. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Oh my God, that's on tape. I'm kidding. I love Larry Fitzgerald. He's my favorite, and he's amazing. I would never do that. Allegedly. Correct. Well, there's a lot of things happening. I mean, the thing about it is, you guys, I think balancing the budget has been a challenge for many, many years. We never fully recovered from what we call our little mini depression, right?
We were actually one of the very slow states to recover. And I think I read an article in Forbes or something saying that we were the least, I mean, like we recovered the least amount than any other state. And the slowest.
It's interesting.
So, and I don't know why that is,
We
but
dropped so hard from the housing bubble.
yeah.
And
So-
that could be part of it, Aaron. That could be part of it. Yeah. So I mean, there's all these things that you think are to the good, and you'd be like, what's going on? Why is there such an issue? And yes, I agree with that. It's kind of ridiculous. But again, we spend a lot. We just do. And so if you want to become more educated, go on go to the governor's budget. If you want to sleep for a while, read it. But I mean, it does break down really good sections where you can actually see specifically. I know one of the things that some of our people are very not concerned about, but have really brought up is prisons being an issue, because there's been a huge amount of money spent. So I don't know how I feel about that. That's a whole nother kettle of fish, but I know that's part of the issue. But the governor, brand new. So we don't know where that's going to go. We're hoping he's a friend. He did run to get the GOP nom on anti-Medicaid. So, but has really flipped. He's flipped around. He's flipped around because I think he recognizes a couple different things, not only just what Medicaid does, but the expansion was pushed through. Even though 16 legislators sued the governor, Jan, because we're friends. Governor Brewer, right, sued her because of that. It never went through, or that never ended up going anyplace. It's still technically in talks. Again, there's a lot of different things that we're going to have to deal with, you guys, this year, but I think our funding is something that we need to come together and talk. And you guys have always been very, very good about that, and we really appreciate it. And of course,
Governor's budget comes out on the 16th.
Correct, January.
Yes.
Just for anybody else.
The last time we went through the original 15%, they made it active. They made it active immediately.
Correct.
And of course, we went to court and we
had to stay.
Right. Any kind of indication as to whether they're going to try to go ahead and let the contract run through the first? No.
Here's the issue. And again, this is my opinion, in talking to the people that I've been talking with and working with the people I've been working with, and I can't say enough about Goodman Schwartz because I'm always talking to them 24/7. It seems like they're like my BFFs now. The issue is $500 million, 6 months. They have to find $500 million, six months, because we're in a $500 million deficit right now for 2015. So if it were just that they were looking at projected, oh gosh, we have $1 billion coming up in 2016, we really have to do something about it, I would feel better, quite frankly, in the sense of it's not going to be like, oh, holy crap, we're in trouble, we got to cut now. So as of February 18th, we're cutting, you know what I'm saying? Right. So we don't know that because right now it's all just chatter about, we just now found out who's in leadership roles and who's on which committee. And so we've just started that outreach with those specific committees to meet with them and talk with them about what some of the issues are. And we do have a caucus going on with our friends there at the legislature in an effort to try to combat some of this and have that kind of, from the get-go, them say, oh God, we can't cut them. No, we can't even talk about it, right? And again, that good news, I know it doesn't seem like it, that we were asked to talk about it, but access was asked by the 9th floor, the governor's office, to give them what's going on? Are you guys good? Are we, basically, why can't we cut you? Seriously.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things families might want to be encouraged about is the workforce. That if they're going to cut us by 5% and we've raised the minimum wage to $8.05, then the pool of people you're going to be able to choose from can get a little scary if people aren't in the house. I don't know, I want some of those folks in my house.
Absolutely.
And so, not that we should be making decisions based on fear, because I don't know the best approach, but it is a reality.
It is.
All of what we do is home communication.
You're right.
And you want to be able to trust your loved one who can't make good decisions
for themselves
in many situations.
Very good point.
That the families can feel empowered to talk on that topic.
Absolutely,
They
absolutely.
might not want to talk about the budget.
Yeah.
But the families who
Sure.
might be willing to say,
Right.
you know, no offense to teenagers getting right out of this school, but I'd like someone just to have, you know, a concurrent heart and a little maturity.
Of
And a
course.
dedication to what I'm doing. That might be an easier way to help families write letters and get actively involved because it affects them.
That's brilliant. And here's the other thing too, what we found, and for any of you that sat through Barb's presentation, Barb Brent, NASD, she talked about the fact that the biggest issue that they have identified for our workforce is the fact that the EPD and all of the baby boomers are now older, and we're fighting for the same workers. EPD, elderly and physically disabled, and DDD going after the same people. And we're already short-staffed. We know we can't find enough people. So knowing that that's the case, it wasn't even wages or anything like that. They had said the first thing that they had noticed was there's just not enough people. There's not enough people to work with our population and the EPD population and everybody else who needs it. So couple that with the fact that you're having to pay more and that you're getting people who maybe aren't the best. And nothing, again, like you said, nothing against them. But at the same time, if you're not able to say you can make more than Wendy's, or you can, you know, all these great things, flexible schedule, whatever it may be. Plus, some people who work 50 and 60 hours are now only working 40. So, you know, and you're having more people in your home. And that's the other piece too that families can speak to is with the companionship exemption, I need not to have a second person in my home now because I have an additional 10 hours that can't be worked by my primary worker. So now I've got a potential health and safety risk, whatever, maybe, again, we're dramatic people. So, I mean, you know, you're going to put those, kind of couple all those different arguments like you're saying to this is a real issue and you are my legislator and I want you to help me figure that out because all this other stuff that's going on in the back end, ACA, companionship exemption, minimum wage increase, all of those things are already hitting us from one side. Now you're looking at hitting us from a completely different side. So we're kind of getting it, and those are the crux of the arguments that we're making right now. Yes, my darling.
I was just down at the Arizona Corporation Commission speaking to them, and I think it's important if we're going to have families talking to legislators and writing letters, that we do some education on what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, and make sure that they are trained so they're not giving us a bad reputation.
Absolutely.
Because it can go wrong. It can go sideways. Like I was sitting there and I was shocked at what people were saying and behaving and not understanding the expectations that maybe the legislature would have. And, you know,
that's a really good.
Call out. I mean, there's basic things you think people would know, but they don't know.
Right. Hey, Isaac, would you mind writing that down? I think that would be a value add for the coalition to say, let's have a parent training. And what we're going to try to do by working with the APAD group and working with this group in ASA and stuff, we're trying to have a consistent message because that would kill us also. Going to the legislature and saying 2 or 3 different things, okay, who's right? Which one do I follow? And is this, okay? So we're trying to work with others as well. So we go there very much knowing what everyone else is saying and having that same message. So I think that's a very good point for families. Wonderful, thank you. That would be great. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah. And again, all this is good information. This is what I'm on the other slide. When I said everybody's going to have to step up and get involved and do things. That's my love.
Well, I just want to let you know that I know one of the names of the people watching you.
Oh, you do?
My husband, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
You've done a great job.
Oh, you're so sweet. That's so nice.
It's fun.
Aw. Who else has nice things to say? Why is it just Gary? What is going on? Gary. You're my rock, buddy. Okay. All right. So that was all I had. I don't know if there's any other questions. If we're good, we're done a little early. That's good because I have to get to DDD. And so, yes, my darling. Speaking of,
have they given us any idea? I know that you said they've responded to the RSD thing.
Yes.
So we'll look into it. Have they given us any sort of time frame potentially?
Well, let me take a look. I think I still have it. Well, yes.
Those are going to be
yes, I do.
figure out.
Respite day. The division is going to evaluate the current rate model for respite daily to determine whether or not a rate adjustment is warranted and financially feasible. Once the division has completed its evaluation, if a rate adjustment is going to be made, it will be in the rate book and notify the provider community. So basically, they're looking into it.
Well, the scary part is you really can't even do two respite days, that's correct?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, because
You're over
that's,
time.
I'm thinking about our January timesheets, and, I mean, in January where someone bills the rest of the day, well, we have to bill the rest of the day, but now I have to pay them 20 hours for it.
Correct. Right.
We're gonna be,
And they're halfway through their work week.
That is
so they
correct.
can't do too much more.
Right. You have somebody who
You
fit,
can't take a 3-day weekend.
you're right. And that was one of the things we had brought up too. I gave them specific examples of a family that we had that only kept their respite all year, so they could go away for 5 days. That's all they used the respite was 5 days where the mom and dad went away and the child stayed at home with their.
or now you need a couple providers.
Oh, easily. And like Barb's saying, you could literally have 2 24-hour shifts and be paying overtime 2 days and somebody's over and they're already over and overtime. Again, I encourage you though, talk to the Department of Labor. It's kind of up on all over the place, but about the sleeping issue. Oh, one other thing I do want to mention. I think this is important. Does anybody here build PPL? Yeesh. Okay, got that, thanks. Okay, so here's the issue. PPL was the division's mastermind for independent providers, okay? They had to have a way to pay them, and so they went out and got PPL, Public Partnership Limited. Timesheets going through them, they go ahead and do it, and then the division pays through that. Okay, that's their own payroll system and how they track it. There was a letter that went out and talked about specifically independent providers and how the companionship exemption was going to affect the division. I have a meeting today, we'll be talking today about that. However, in this letter, it talked about overtime being paid by the division and drive time being paid by the division. So we're trying to get some very specifics. If you see anything like that from one of your providers, like if the providers get a letter and it says, basically you have to let us know that you're going to be working overtime, and you have to give us all this information, because basically you're an independent provider, you work for the division. You don't work for an agency, you work for the division, right? There are 2,000 independent providers. So this was my ask, what's to keep the division, or a provider rather, from just working for the division and getting paid overtime when we as a group are not?
I thought they were independent contractors.
Nope. That's why PPL, because it would be just be a 1099.
That was part of the reason PPL was brought together.
That is correct, because there was an issue with the independent provider model with that. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. If you hear anything about, or someone says, well, I'm just going to go work here, they're going to pay overtime or whatever, great. It is a parity issue. Yes, with golfers, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, before golfers? How was that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about that today, that exact issue today, but just be aware of it. So if somebody says to you, oh, well, I'm going to stop working for Play ABA and I'm just going to go work full-time for the state because I can work 50 hours or 60 hours and be paid overtime. It was a letter that we got that was kind of given to us on the slide, because we have moles everywhere. It was given to us on the slide by a provider saying, hey, I got this. What's going on? Is this cool? And we were like, terrific. So we'll find out the details on it, and I'll report back to you guys so you know from the division what they're going to say. It is on our meeting agenda today. Okay, I just want to make you aware in case you've heard anything.
The division already, for their home, for those institutions, they have already paid more than we're able to pay.
That's true.
Yes, I mean.
Yeah. Well, and again,
there's no correlation between what state pays and what
right.
they are willing to pay us.
Well, and that's no, because that would make sense. God bless you. No. The issue is for us though is a competitive wage competitive type of scenario. So if we as employers are not able to pay overtime, but the division is like, sure, no problem, right? We have an issue. And, it's one of those unintended consequences.
I know, but we've had this issue for quite some time.
Sure, of course. Well, that was just with regular one, but now this is adding on to it because it's not just straight time, it's overtime.
and that ability to draw all of the providers.
Correct. But the other piece of this, and my first thing was, where the hell are they getting this money? I mean, that was like I think I said that to Brandy. I was like, where the hell are they getting this money? They're paying overtime. How are they paying overtime? We can't pay overtime. Who's paying overtime? Why is this working? So again, I'll get to the bottom of it, or we'll get to the bottom of it. We'll try to, if we get an answer today, because we have made a formal request to be like, what up? Okay. Any other questions of the funness that was today? You guys are hating me now because it's like, ugh, every time we talk to her, she's got bad news. But it's not bad news. It is life. It's the way, that's the way it is. All the other stuff that we're talking about, not a lot we can do, right? So thank you for coming. If you have additional questions, you know, you can always contact us through the coalition, and have a great Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday, everybody. Love you guys. Oh, please. Ridiculous. And I love you more. Oh, you found it horrible. That's why I was giving you a hard time. I'm like, oh my God.
Nicholas keeps bringing it home.
It'll get better.
Kids and that school thing.
Yeah. Your son though.
Oh my God, she's a baby.